Israeli lawmakers have begun the parliamentary session for a final vote on a prominent clause of the controversial judiciary reforms. Even as protests against the judicial overhaul rage outside, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is present in parliament for the vote. Netanyahu attended the Knesset hours after he was discharged from hospital, where he underwent surgery to install a pacemaker. Israeli President Isaac Herzog led a last-minute bid for a compromise on Netanyahu's judicial reforms on Sunday. Herzog also met Netanyahu ahead of the crucial vote. Tens of thousands of Israeli protesters are rallying in Jerusalem against the controversial bill. In Jerusalem, Israeli police and protesters scuffled ahead of the vote. Police dragged demonstrators away as a group staged a sit-down by blocking a road. Some protesters dressed as judges, handcuffed to a rope. Police also used water cannons to disperse demonstrators.
We came to protest against the changing of the administration in Israel. We fear we've gone down to a dictatorship. And we want to show in a way of performance how it would look. That's why we put ourselves judges' costumes, and we cuffed ourselves. And we also went with a rope around us that was led by Bibi. And that means to say that Bibi wants to take all the judges under his authority to get free of charge.
Political analysts have described the situation as a showdown between the hardline religious nationalist coalition and swathes of Israeli society. The vote would mark the first major piece of legislation to be approved. Israelis calling for the proposed judicial overhaul to be scrapped lined city streets in Jerusalem carrying flags and beating drums. The police used water cannon to disperse the protesters. Thousands of protesters entering Jerusalem rallied near the parliament, the Supreme Court and the Prime Minister's residence. They arrived after a multi-day march that began in Tel Aviv early in the week. The protesters had marched for over 70 kilometers and had set up camps in the city. Meanwhile, counter-protesters also gathered in Tel Aviv. They say opponents of the bill want to override the will of the majority that voted Netanyahu's government into power last year. And the battle has opened up deep divisions in the Israeli community and society.
I'm here today to make it clear to the people that I've elected, to the people that I voted for, to the people that I support, that I am 100% in favor of this judicial reform. I think my country needs it. I think we absolutely need to go through with it. I think it would be a huge mistake to let anarchists who run absolute terror across our streets to win in this case, who are fully attempting a military coup. I think it would be a huge mistake to fall prey to that, and I really, really hope that they follow through with everything they've promised us they do.
As the protesters travel to and from protest sites, an interesting visual from the Navon station was posted by a member of the Knesset. Protesters going up the elevator heading to pro-judicial reform protests shook hands with protesters going down the escalator or elevator heading to anti-judicial reform protests. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has been discharged from hospital where he underwent a successful pacemaker implantation. The Benjamin Netanyahu-led government is potentially set to win the vote as it sits on a comfortable majority in the single-chamber Knesset. Voting is set to be held in about half an hour from now. Our correspondent Jody Cohen is now joining us live from Jerusalem for the very latest. Hi Jody, what's the latest on the protests from where you're from?
Hi Eric. So the protests have been sort of threefold today. They've been based around the Parliament building. We saw from early this morning there was a sit-in outside Parliament trying to stop MPs from even being able to get in to vote. The MPs did get in to vote. Obviously, the debates have been going on for hours now, but the protesters have stayed outside. Now, I'm in the protest tent city in Jerusalem. We've had thousands of protesters come here throughout the day. It's very well organized. There are tents here. People are actually sleeping here, and they're saying that they won't be moved on until this legislation is halted. And then the third aspect of the protest today has really been a forum of 150 major private businesses. We're talking about pharmacies, shopping malls, petrol stations, things like that, banks as well. They've been on strike throughout the day. That's not been coordinated with the Histadrut Labour Union. This isn't a general strike, but they've also been having their discussions about whether or not they should get involved as well.
Jody, let's talk about the vote now. Is there a likelihood of a last-minute compromise being reached in the Knesset?
So we're hearing mixed messages. We know that President Herzog, as soon as he arrived in Israel from his visit to the United States, last night he went straight to the hospital to visit Prime Minister Netanyahu. From there, he went on to see Yair Lapid, the leader of the opposition. And from there, he went on to Benny Gantz, who's the biggest political rival to Prime Minister Netanyahu, according to many recent polls. Now, we heard talks that possibly could there be a compromise. Then we heard from Yair Lapid that those talks had failed. Then we saw Prime Minister Netanyahu enter the Knesset, the parliamentary plenum, and he went and shook hands with Benny Gantz. We're hearing rumours potentially that there might be some sort of compromise proposed within Likud itself. Some people are pushing, and Prime Minister Netanyahu is reportedly said to be one of them, also Defence Minister Gallant. They're reportedly pushing for the second reading to pass, and then for there to be a pause in the proceedings, and then for the bill to go back to the Justice Committee, talks to happen with the opposition, and nothing further to proceed without those talks. But then there are others within the coalition who are 100% against this. We're talking about Justice Minister Levin. We're talking about National Security Minister Ben-Gvir. They've actually threatened to bring down the government if the bill isn't passed as is today. So it remains to be seen what they mean exactly by that and whether or not things will pause after the second reading. We'll know more over the next few hours.
All right, I've been talking to our correspondent Jody Cohen live from Jerusalem. Jody, thank you. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.